After Hours, a short form of Why Didn't You Test That podcast here at Custody Software. I'm Rich Jordan, Solutions Enterprise Architect. We take a water cooler conversation, one we get involved a lot in. You've just started talking on the intro.
Yeah, I know. Look, this is prime mini pod stuff.
Joining me again, we've got Ben Riley, Master of Ceremonies, Master of Chaos. I can't remember what you introduced yourself last time as.
I can't remember either, to be honest. It was probably chaotic, let's be honest.
And our very special guest on the pod, we've got Mantas. Mantas, do you want to say hello and introduce yourself?
Welcome.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Mantas Dvareckas. I'm a digital marketing specialist here at Curiosity, and I do a lot of the behind the scenes when it comes to our social, our branding, our website, and all things digital.
We always like to have a guest. We always like to have somebody from the company behind the scenes a little bit. You spoke a little bit there in terms of your role. But, let's talk about something a bit more fun. What do you want to talk about?
We can start with one is, are muffins cakes?
What other category would you put them in, though? Because I've never thought about it as a cake, but what else would you put it in?
That's a really good question. I've only ever thought of a muffin as a muffin. Is a muffin a cake? Potentially. I'm going to put it in the cake category, but I don't really know. You're a bit of a gamer, Mantas. I'm just sideswiping that entire muffin conversation.
Let's move on.
Right, it's over there. You're a bit of a gamer, right? You play, I'm going to say League of Legends. Last time we spoke, anything else been creeping into the world?
Yeah. I mean, I play everything. I think I have folders on my PS5 for like completed games, backlogs, all sorts of genres. Recently, I finished Tunic, which is like an indie kind of Zelda-like game, right? Like a retro old school Zelda, but with a modern twist. It's very cool.
Old school.
Fun.
When you say old school, you're going to age us quite a lot here.
Yeah. Gaming's interesting, right? Because it's like probably the only industry that's really we could argue about this, I suppose, into early releases, like pre-alpha releases, and a lot of the community do the testing, right?
It's kind of weird to think about, you can release a video game early, have everyone test it, give you feedback, and fix it after the fact, but you still pay to test it, right? But I guess it kind of links back to the whole quality in software, right? I mean, video games are software, and, if you can't afford to test, if you don't have the time to test, but your CTOs, your management is pushing you to release, you need to make money now, deadlines are really tight. Why not go for early access, right? And then have the community help you make a better product, right? But if you are developing something, you should, talk to the people, the end users, right? For feedback, right? When we're updating our tool, Modular, ETD, we do go out and talk to our existing user base and see what would they like to see, how we can improve it from their perspective, right?
It's slightly different in that you're also getting people quite often to pay for it, right? It's not like, hey, come try our game and let us know if it's any good. I mean, I'm sure there are scenarios with that, but for a lot of people, they might just get a slightly cheaper price, I guess, if you join early, or maybe even pay full price and you're just paying full price knowing you're getting a slightly glitchy version of the game, right?
Yeah, but at least it's in this phase called early access, right? Where it's not going to be finished. So when you buy a £70 game, you expect it to be finished. You expect it to be of a premium quality, right? But there's cases where you'll buy a game and it's broken on release. It's buggy. Mm-hmm. It crashes your computer. It crashes your PlayStation and you can't play it, right? So what do you do then? It's way more expensive to fix bugs after release, right? Fix bugs once the product has gone out. And this applies, and there's a lot of case studies in gaming where a product is released, it's buggy, it's not what the audience wanted, it doesn't fulfill the requirements of the gaming, culture or what they need. And that game 3 months later shuts down and no one's playing. And that the company loses 200 million. That happened recently with Warner Brothers. They released a game, the Suicide Squad. It was a live service meant to be this massive thing. No one wanted it. They didn't listen to the community's feedback when they first announced it.
And so most products, especially on first release, they don't have a community. But where for gaming, for example, there is a community. There is a certain aspiration to get things as early as you can get. And I guess there's a certain kudos stroke community building in terms of helping to do the testing. Whereas in other other genres, other products, other MVPs, for example, that loyalty, that community just doesn't exist to then go and exploit it. It's a brilliant model, don't get me wrong. But I guess where else could you kind of do that?
So you're working at a financial institution. You've figured out a problem with, I think they're things around Kubernetes. Shout out to Apvia. Sorry if I'm messing your story up. But I'm pretty sure that they then, after figuring out that this is a problem, they build a solution around it. They then build an internal community, and then they build a company to then go and sell that to other areas. I think you would get similar-ish sort of crossover, but generally, I agree, Rich. There's not that same in our sort of software world, not sort of gaming software, but sort of, enterprises and finance and insurance and all that sort of stuff. You could argue maybe like a Jenkins started in that similar sort of way, maybe not, right? Like some of the CI/CD tooling or some of the automation tooling builds up a bit of a community and sort
through
of
the open
grows.
source into the whole commercial.
Definitely. So have you done much early access sort of testing? Do you give feedback? What's it sort of look like from your perspective?
Recently I took part in the Tekken 8, which came out this year. I took part in the alpha and the beta test for that game. It was like 2 weekend periods where you get to play the game, get to test it, and then you fill out a survey. But I would like to say there are other creative ways where you can get feedback on your piece of software or your art. For example, musicians often play unreleased songs at concerts, right? To get a crowd reaction, to see how they perform, right? Of course, movies have movie festivals, right? Where they give standing ovations. If the standing ovation's under 5 minutes, then you got a problem, right? So, so you can apply that to software where, you can, as you say, the internal community, family and friends. If it's an app, let your friends download it, let them play around with it. There's, be creative in how you test it if you are a new product, if you don't have that large community.
And you were sort of maybe going to talk a little bit about what it's like being a bit of a newbie in the sort of testing space, or some advice to people who are sort of fresh to it or first to it, all that sort of stuff.
I am new to the whole software testing, software quality space. I didn't know what software testing was at all, before I joined. I finished my master's in marketing, and I know that's what I do here, but it had nothing to do with software quality at all. But in a way, the community here, there's so many groups on LinkedIn, there's so many individual websites for community like Testing Tech News, and in fact, at Curiosity, I'm not the only one who had nothing to do with software quality before he joined the company. But it's really just about being able to learn, right? Because a lot of the skills you already have in your space, be it marketing, be it sales, be it management, they're all transferable. And I guess that also then links back to some of the, bigger community events that you could go to, right? From lunch and learns to, afternoon beer, right, that we've had in London before, to, Smarter Bear events, right? And then you get conferences like Eurostar, which you can even apply to be a volunteer at Eurostar, right?
Or taking your gaming analogy, right? If you land in your new open world game, don't run straight forwards, turn around and go in the opposite direction. Or, there's loads of examples of just people need to think creatively and not feel like they have to follow a set script of how to test a thing. And you get great testers out of that sort of stuff. What about you, Rich?
So I started testing over 20 years ago, right? So I, similar to Mantas, finished at university. I did a placement year, and so I went to work for a retail IT centre as a kind of it was my apprenticeship, if you like, where I kind of got a lot of free reign to kind of play around with a lot of the tools that exist in testing. It was a great experience, got a lot of freedom to do kind of what you want, but you need a bit of structure, right? Which is kind of where you then go and do a bit of exploration around, what does good testing mean? And there's a hell of a lot of best practices and standards out there. Just don't think people go and look for them. All right. Yeah. And so either you look for official standards and, in testing, IFTQB, TMMI, things like that, you get an absolute slating, but they are a very good grounding in terms of if you want to understand kind of basics of testing, go and do those things. Then go out and apply those things where it's applicable. But there's a hell of a lot of good stuff, free stuff on things like YouTube, where you've got people talking people at the top of their industry, be that in testing or software development or architecture, that will give our presentations on best practices of kind of any organization, any complexity. If you've got a challenge, there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. You can probably find 10 different solutions, and some of them will work for you, some of them won't. Within testing, for example, right, everybody concentrates on automation, right? But yet there is a dearth of expertise around basic analysis, right? There's a big problem around people understanding that we don't really understand how systems work. Just those simple analysis practices just don't exist, right? Everybody jumps for a test automation tool. I want to automate it. And you think you're missing the basics.
Yeah, I hear a lot of that, right? I mean, automation's great, but if you're automating the wrong thing, who cares? And so on and so forth. There's loads about it, right? I would say you just be curious about the stuff you're doing, right? And do your best to break it. And to Rich's point, I would say absolutely go and look for what exists before trying to reinvent something that's probably been done.
I would say, just to, I guess would it be a pun? I'm not sure. But take a CI/CD approach to your learning, right? Continuous development, continuous integration, right? As you learn, make sure you apply what you learn.
Rock and roll. Good stuff.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Why Didn't You Test That podcast. To continue the conversation, head over to curiositysoftware.ie. And don't forget to subscribe for more episodes.